97.3 ESPN.com. You can catch all of our Sixers coverage, including our next guest. Joining me now on the Boardwalk on the hotline, Justin Grasso, writes for 97.3 ESPN.com. Lots of great Sixers coverage up there. Sixers are back in action tonight versus the Raptors. You hear all the action tonight on 97.3 ESPN. Pregame coverage starts at 7 o'clock. Justin, how you doing today?
Good. How are you, Josh?
I'm doing pretty good. So before we get into the particulars of this series, as of right now, as of April 27th at 12:32, how are you feeling about the Sixers? Are you confident? Are you not confident? Do you feel like they've come a long way? Like, give me kind of like an insight into how you feel about the Sixers at this moment in time.
Well, I'd say around this time last year, I'm probably more confident this time around. I think last year they were too cocky, too inexperienced heading into that second round. I think there's definitely a different where it's confident. It's confidence that they have, but it's not overconfident. So I definitely feel a lot better this time around than I did last year.
Do you think the confidence is just because the roster is better, or do you think it's also because of the fact that the type of players who were acquired? Like last year, Colangelo, he acquired Ilyasova and Bellinelli. Elton Brand acquires guys like Tobias Harris and Mike Scott and Jimmy Butler. Is it also the type of player that's also a difference for you?
Yeah, I definitely think that they have a lot more star power this year and also, playoff experience already on the roster. So with having your young guys now having 1 year of experience along with other guys that have been around for a while, I definitely think that that's definitely, a big key for their series coming up.
All right, let's get into this series. We know that Mike Scott is probably not going to be playing tonight. What do you think is going to be the impact of him not playing, and who do you think fills that role?
I think it's definitely a big loss that even though he's just coming off of the bench, but I think we'll probably, see more minutes from Ben Simmons. And then when Ben Simmons kind of goes and fills in that role, I think TJ McConnell will probably, have more minutes, a lot more minutes than he did in the last series. So I definitely think TJ McConnell, sees a lot more time. We can even see some Zaire.
We just lost Justin there. Justin Grasso joining us on the Boardwalk kind of hotline. We'll try to pop him back on the line here on 97.3 ESPN. We were just talking about the Sixers play tonight on 97.3 ESPN. Coverage begins at 7 o'clock is the pregame coverage. Tip-off right after 7:30 here on 97.3 ESPN. This game is actually in Toronto, so their start time is going to be a little bit different, and we think we got Justin back on the line. Justin, we got you back now?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, you were in the middle of a great point, and we just totally lost you before you made the point about Mike Scott there.
What was the last thing you heard?
The last thing we heard was that, because you were saying that, Mike Scott, he comes off the bench still has a valuable role for the team.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so I think Ben Simmons will shift into that, to his position a little bit, and I think we'll definitely see a lot more TJ McConnell this time around. Last series, Brett Brown was kind of keeping him on the bench a lot, so I think he gets a lot more minutes as they shift Ben Simmons. Ben Simmons will probably get more minutes, and then we'll also see some Zaire Smith apparently too, so that'll be interesting to see how the rookie plays out in the playoffs.
Do you think that the setup you just named, is that going to be enough to fill the void of Mike Scott? This is the guy who's shooting like 40% from three this year, a guy who's got a little bit of intensity, some grit. Do you think that a combination of moving Simmons around, McConnell coming in, is that really enough to fill the void of Mike Scott?
To be honest, it'll definitely change because obviously Ben Simmons isn't going to come out and start shooting threes. Right. I'd be really surprised if that happens, but I definitely think if they get Zaire Smith a fair amount of minutes, Mike Scott's been playing, I think it's like 23 points, or not 23 points, 23 minutes per game. Right. So I think they'll definitely mix it up with different players, but I think Zaire Smith should at least, see like 10 to 12 minutes, and he can hopefully be the guy that's, shooting from three. I don't know how that's going to fall, but at least it's better than, having Simmons out there and not shooting.
Justin Grasso joining me on the Boardwalk on the hotline on 97.3 ESPN. Follow on Twitter at jgrasso_ on Twitter. It's jgrasso_ on Twitter. Justin, one of the things that's been talked about with this series a lot is Kawhi Leonard. And obviously he should be. He's one of the top 3 players in the league. How do you think the Sixers can neutralize his impact? Or is it a situation where you say, let Kawhi get his and we just try to stop everybody else?
Yeah, I think that's going to be the most interesting, strategy that they're going to go with. And I think they will let Kawhi get his. I think there's just one of those things. I mean, Simmons has been playing great defense, but this is Kawhi Leonard we're talking about. So I think they're kind of, they're giving him his props saying, he's great. We know he's great. So, let him do what he normally does. And then we'll just kind of clamp down on everybody else around him. So I wouldn't panic seeing, Kawhi go off. I mean, we've seen one player from, plenty of teams go off against the Sixers and they still can't come away with the win. So I definitely think they're going to just let him, do his thing.
When you look at Ben Simmons, how do you think is he going to play in this series, considering last year when he got to the second round, it was rough going for him. He struggled at times, and he only actually played better when he had a secondary ball handler in T.J. McConnell in that one game that they won. Well, now you got a secondary ball handler who's a much better player than Jimmy Butler. Do you think they take the ball out of Ben Simmons' hands a little bit more, or do you think Brett Brown is going to keep depending on him as the primary ball handler?
I think they'll see how it plays out in the first game. I think they'll still kind of, run through Simmons, and then as soon as, if he starts turning the ball over like he did against Toronto in the past in, the regular season, then I think they'll kind of switch and go to Butler. Like we saw it in the last series in game 1, Simmons was obviously struggling, so they decided to go with Butler, handling the ball more. So I think we'll find out more about that tonight, and I don't think they'll hesitate to kind of put the game more in Jimmy Butler's hands rather than Simmons, just so, we're not turning the ball over so many times.
What is the one player not named Kawhi Leonard that worries you the most with Toronto?
I think, honestly, for, Embiid, definitely Ibaka could be someone that kind of, gives him a tough time. Usually there's some centers in the league that can just know it. They know how to handle Embiid. And I think that's kind of a rough matchup. I don't think it's going to be, I think he'll be able to handle it, but that's just definitely something to keep your eye on.
Justin, one of the things also been talked about a lot this year is Brett Brown, the head coach. And in this series, he's going up against a first-year head coach in Nick Nurse. So this is totally unlike the last few times this Sixers team has been in the playoffs. Last year it was Eric Spoelstra and Brad Stevens. This year, first round, you get a guy in Kenny Atkinson a lot of people believe could be a coach of the year candidate. Nick Nurse is the guy that a lot of people believe that he was kind of handed the keys to the Lamborghini, just holding out to crash it.
Right. Yeah. I mean, this year definitely. This is an important series for Brett Brown because I don't know if he's definitely on the hot seat, but the Sixers are definitely going to have to consider thinking of a change if he can't get through the series. So it's definitely important for him, but I think he has the upper hand in this one because, I thought he did a great job last series. So it's definitely an important series for Brett, and I think he'll be able to outcoach the Raptors this time around.
You say that they have to consider possibly moving on from they can't get out of this round. But if they move on from Brett Brown for whatever, let's say they do. Let's just run down that rabbit hole real quick for a sec, Justin. Who do you replace him with? Because I think the problem
that's the big question.
Well, that's the thing. I think everyone says, I don't like fill in the blank. But then when you ask people, well, who should be the coach? Like, for example, the answer I hear all the time is Mark Jackson, right? Right. Don't we think there's a reason why Mark Jackson hasn't gotten a job since he got fired?
Yeah, and I say that about a lot of candidates that people bring up. And, me personally, I like Brett Brown. I've liked what he's done. Obviously, there's some questionable things that he does where it kind of makes you frustrated. But, after the last series, I personally would say that they should hold on to him. But I mean, it's just a rumor around the league where it's, if Brett Brown doesn't get out of this, then, he has to be moved on from. I personally don't think that that's the case. I think he proved enough in the last series that, he should be kept for, at least throughout the duration of his extension that he got last year.
Justin, you mentioned about the rumors around the league. You see the story that Chris Sheridan put in the New York Daily News. You see the story a few months ago on ESPN about Butler and Brown. We've seen the stories about Simmons and Embiid throughout different media outlets. I feel like there's an agenda by people, either around this organization or around the league. They just don't like the people in this organization. They don't like the players. They don't like the head coach. Where do you think that agenda comes from? Do you think it's just there are people who are just disgruntled, or do you think that some of this agenda and rumor out there is actually legitimate?
I think it definitely comes from the fact that the Sixers tanked and they were a target to, kind of make fun of for, however many years that they were just losing terribly. And now that they're kind of good, it's kind of got people